and Formula One Philosophy is back for a quick recap episode after what we saw at the Bahrain Grand Prix. We're going to do things a little different today because I'm busy, Sean's busy, life's busy, and we want to get this out before the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix this weekend. Actually, this week was more me busy than you busy, and I'm sorry. I'd like to apologize for that. Life gets in the way. Pardon me?
Don't blame me for your nonsense.
Yeah, I thought about it and I said I just kind of threw you under the bus with me. It's definitely my fault this week. So, this week, like I said, doing things a little bit differently to recap this race. I'll just say off the bat, and I'll give you your quick thoughts too. I thought this was the worst race so far. Didn't expect much going in. It was kind of stupid of Sky Sports and Martin Brundle to respond to Jeremy Clarkson's trolling, saying the Japanese Grand Prix was very boring. They brought this whole discussion in that didn't need to be brought in for a great Grand Prix for someone who hasn't liked F1 for over 20 years. And they tried to overcompensate, I noticed all the podcasts, by saying that Bahrain was amazing. So many strategies. Sure. But in terms of racing, it was all right. What did you think before we get into it?
I thought it was a good race. I thought it was probably next to Piastri, who clearly ran away with it. I thought it was probably some of the closest racing we've had through the pack all year. That wasn't, let's say, artificial due to weather or some of that. So for me, every time I looked at the screen, it looked like Ollie Behrman was passing 3 people at once. Must have had 50 cars on the grid for him to still only take 10th.
You just pouring salt in my wounds. Okay, Sean. Thanks.
And then we had, there were battles all over the place. Carlos got unfortunate, but, Yuki showed that he's already improved on where Lawson was. So I think overall it was actually quite a good race.
From the midfield perspective, I can see that. I can see how you see that. We've had definitely close racing at the front for the most part in the first 3. So that's why I would say out of the 4 it was the worst. But I bring that up to just say, like, I've noticed the podcasts were just really overcompensating, trying to say, look how good it is, look how good it is. Like, don't let people who aren't fans of Formula One drag you into discussions about why you have to defend Formula One. They should have just ignored Clarkson and anybody who said Japan was boring. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure. But then maybe start with that.
I had to give some background. Anyways, okay, so we're a little different of opinion slightly on that, but the way we're going to do this week, we're going to just do 2 good and 2 bad, and we're going to do sort of bullet points, get through it as quickly as we can, which means we will be done in an hour and a half based on our track record, but we'll try. So 2 good, 2 bad. To start with the 2 good, like we usually do, I'm going to say that my 2 good of the week was obviously Oscar Piastri and George Russell. And in terms of Piastri, just another solid, amazing race from him. Qualified on pole, took control of the race, drove like he was 10 years older, drove like he's been on this grid forever. No mistakes. Perfect weekend. I think he was all over it in practice too. I don't think he topped the timesheets in practice, but it was kind of one of those weekends where he did everything perfectly. Great strategy from him and McLaren. McLaren seemed to nail it when they revolve around Piastri. And that should show them that maybe this is their guy to fight the proper championship. McLaren can really look back now at the first 3 races and think if we let Piastri fly, he would be 30 points ahead of Lando and 31 ahead of Max. So it's kind of a waste on their part. And I think going forward, he is going to be the guy after this race. That's my thought on that for now. Sean, what were your 2 good this week?
My 2 good were Oscar is one of them, and then Yuki would be the other. So with Oscar, I think you nailed it. He's just on it, was on it all weekend, didn't complain, just got on with the program, went out there, took pole, and probably the most dominant race from pole we've seen all year so far.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really touched him. Nobody even really came close to touching him. Russell did what he does and, started in a decent position and went nowhere. But that's Russell's game, and frankly, I can't fault him for that because he's currently in third or fourth place from doing nothing.
Yeah.
So Piastri, on the other hand, put in the work, did exactly what he needed to do. He's now the only two-time winner this year,
And
so
two-time
far
pole.
at least,
And two-time
and
pole.
two-time pole. Yeah. So he's more than made up for his first race blunder, which I think you and I both agree was not really his fault.
No.
So I think it's clear that McLaren are on it as a whole, and then we have Piastri really coming to terms with the team and the car.
So yeah, like I said, they're on it when they're with him, when they're in sync with him. Were all the blunders last year trying to deal with Lando? I know it's big speculation. It's kind of ridiculous to say just because he has one bad race, but like they had issues when they were worried about him. Not with they never seem to have problems when they're focusing on Oscar.
Yeah, maybe let's save that for the second half because I've got thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. I want to ask you one question, and like I said, once again, just a ridiculous speculation, simplification of everything we've seen in the last 2 years. Did McLaren improve since 2023 because they built around Oscar, or is it something else? I'm starting to wonder now. Is it because they were working with Oscar this whole time and not Lando? Because with Lando, it was always up and down year to year. But since Oscar has come, it has been an upward trajectory. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that McLaren has improved as a team overall, regardless of the driver. The team has legitimately improved. And that's what we want to see. We want to see that. And it's clear that it's a team improvement, at least from a technical and engineering side. Obviously, operationally, race trackside operations could be better than they are. But we're seeing that both drivers can get up there, and both drivers are pretty different in the way they handle these cars. So the car seems to be a strong point. And I think that's a good technical team, a good management team on McLaren's side. The team has come back to the front.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say that it's Oscar was the lead there. Orlando was the lead. I think Zach Brown, as much as he annoys us, has done a good job in bringing that group back to the front. And now that Stella's there, I think they've got some real solid leadership from a team side. And that's what I think it is.
Yeah, and that's probably the right answer. I'm just saying I wonder now. And it's just speculation. Like I said, it's just an inkling thought. It's not. There's no basis in fact there. It's just interesting to me.
No.
Yeah, and you're probably right. All right. Like I said, my second good was George Russell. Not much to say. Yeah, he couldn't keep up at the front, but he did hold everyone behind him back and held on to second place. Qualified well again. Brought more out of that car than was probably warranted. I don't know if Mercedes is going to be here this the entire season, because I have a feeling Red Bull and Ferrari will eventually get it together. We can wait a long time on Red Bull, and Ferrari usually has an uptick, even if briefly. So just the fact that he's doing this now with what could potentially be the fourth best car is pretty impressive. So I want to give him his dues. This weekend he was on it. He nailed it. Good job, George. That's all I'm really going to say about that.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Interesting.
But you're entitled to your opinion. I will say that realistically, I think they have the third best car. He's only in fourth because of Verstappen.
Hmm.
Um, but I think with another driver in that car, they could be higher.
Wow.
With another driver in that car, they could be in the third place from a driver standpoint. Maybe even better off in the constructors than they are. Yes, they're in second, but it's a pretty big point spread. Um, like I mentioned, I think Russell is simply a good enough driver to handle a good car. And that's why he gets into these positions where he's in no man's land. Okay, he might be able to hold off somebody pushing from behind, but I think if he was as good as people make him out to be, he would have been out in front by 20 some odd seconds, which is not the case, right? So I see him simply as a mid pack driver in a good car.
That
And I'll
go on.
go ahead.
No, I'm going to say that you're absolutely right. Like a big picture, George Russell. Yeah, there's not much there, and yeah, probably someone could be doing more. And he's not showing world championship class. I'm saying just this weekend, I thought he did pretty good. But I think your overall picture of him, yeah, is absolutely right.
Yeah.
If you want to add anything else, otherwise you want to get to Yuki.
The only thing I was going to add there is Antonelli's performance, and yeah, he didn't do great in Bahrain, but Antonelli's performance in general tells me that Russell's underperforming.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Antonelli's setting fastest laps in Japan, having overall pace, getting points consistently until Bahrain. Probably got screwed on strategy. Yeah, shows
4 races into his career.
Yeah, shows the car is better than we expected because Antonelli's still pretty green. So yeah. Go on.
Just for perspective, Antonelli currently sits sixth in the sixth in the drivers' championship, ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
Oh wow!
He is the only rookie in the top 10.
Yes.
So either the car is extremely good and Russell is extremely mediocre, or the car is decent and Antonelli really is an up-and-coming world champion.
Maybe.
It's impressive.
Yeah, I thought he would be a lot worse. But I think maybe the Toto Wolff finishing school has been working for the most part.
You think anybody who's not Michael Schumacher or Max Verstappen should be a lot worse than they are. So
kind of, but I just, like I said in preseason, the way they rushed him out of F3 worried me. That's why I thought he'd be a lot worse.
Oh yeah, it worried me too. But I mean, now we have data.
Yes. No, he's a lot better than I thought. It's just, and you're probably right. Russell, if he was actually good, would be really overperforming based on what we see with Antonelli. But yeah, maybe something you and I have been saying for years. Maybe George and Lewis were the problem. Maybe. Stay tuned.
It's all in the past now.
Yes. Based on the things we've heard about Max Verstappen potentially leaving Red Bull. Stay tuned, everybody, to see what Mercedes ends up with. Anyways.
Sorry, just because you mentioned it, I have to bring it up. Did you see Max's comment to Ted Kravitz, I believe it was?
No, I didn't.
He was asked about the rumors of him going to Mercedes. And Max and Ted don't have a good relationship.
Okay.
And Max's answer was something along the lines of, you stick to commentating, I'll stick to driving, and then we don't have to speculate about nonsense.
Yeah. That's good. Well, we'll talk about that another time. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But that's good job, Max. And fuck you, Ted Kravitz. Yuki, talk to me about what you
Yuki.
saw.
I was hoping we would get this out of the way earlier, closer to race day, so I wouldn't have my goldfish brain kick in. So I might need some refreshers from you, Nick.
9th place.
Where did Yuki? Yeah.
9th place.
Where did he qualify?
10th. 10th, yes.
Okay, yeah, that
No,
makes
no.
sense.
Yes, no, it was 10th. It was 10th, yes.
Yeah. So ninth place qualified 10th. So yeah. And I saw a bunch of nonsense memes online about him, putting in all this work and effort just to move one place. But it's a little short-sighted to say that
Mm.
because you saw him work in the race, right? That the pack was so close this race that everybody except Oscar Piastri at each pit stop fell to the back. And it wasn't a strategy dominated race per se. We did have a safety car to break it up, which unfortunately was caused by Yuki, but that's a different story. Um, so these guys had to fight, right? And I mentioned Ollie Behrman was passing cars left, right, and center all race magically on a 20 car grid. I think he had 30 overtakes to himself, but that was simply because it ended up being a two, potentially three stop race. And every time you were in the pits, you were guaranteed to be at the back. So these guys worked all race long. Yuki finally has a strategist that can, strategize their way out of a wet paper bag. And he showed that given a good strategy and a car that he at least appears to understand, he can fight back and he can get to where he needs to be. And, yeah, it's one place up from where he qualified, but hey, it's points. It's the first points for the second car in on it's the first points for Red Bull's second car all season.
And like 6 races, like going back to last season.
Exactly. So that there is a highlight. They now have a driver that can score points. We'll see how consistent that is, but it's promising. So
Yeah.
I think that was a good performance from Yuki. I think he's starting to show that, you know, at least the faith that I've had in him for the last couple of years hasn't been misplaced. It wasn't just for shits and giggles. It it is legitimate that he deserves a spot on the grid.
And a spot at the senior team, which I think everybody knew last season, preseason, that it probably needed to happen in some form.
Yep.
Lawson started worse than Perez ever was and wasn't given time to show if he could get better. More on that later.
Mm-hmm.
And Yuki started around where Perez, like in between Perez's worst and Perez's standard after Imola last year. So Suzuka was like a 12th. Perez was either a little bit better than that at times or a little bit worse. So Yuki was right in the middle. And now he improved in a week to the point where he's Perez's baseline since Imola. He's around there. He probably should have finished 8th, finished 9th. So that's dramatic improvement in a week, I would say. And if he keeps improving, he could probably get to the point where him and Verstappen are a place within each other. Hopefully. We'll see. We'll see if that's possible
I
with
would
this guy.
love to see that. It would be great. I'm not sure that that's realistic for this year,
Yeah. Yeah. Listen,
but yeah,
more than likely, if that's not going to happen this year, and this is not blaming Yuki, this is blaming Red Bull. If that doesn't happen this year, it's probably not happening next year because they got a lot of problems and a cliff, facing a potential cliff if they don't get things right for the new regulations.
we will see. I mean, next year is a complete unknown because now you have new engine formula and new aero formulas. All it takes is for McLaren to get it wrong, and then Red Bull just has to be mediocre. Or maybe Ferrari comes out of nowhere and nails it somehow,
Or Mercedes.
and then everybody else is up there or out of the picture, let's say.
Yeah, let's not hold our breath with Ferrari. Maybe Mercedes though. They might get it right. They've gotten it right before.
I'm just saying, stranger things have happened.
Is that it for Yuki?
Um, I think so. I'm trying to remember the incident with Sainz, and I believe Sainz was trying to get past him, and Yuki oversteered into him slightly.
Yeah, the Red Bull fishtailed and lost control like it always does. Max seems to have a better handle and getting used to that than Yuki does at the moment. So
Yeah, but Sainz was coming around the outside on him, right?
don't remember exactly. I feel like Sainz was on the inside, but we'll look back on that and correct ourselves next week.
Yeah. Anyway, there's just a comment that Sainz put all that on Yuki, but I don't know. It was an overtake attempt that potentially caught him off guard, and that's part and parcel of motor racing. So they investigated it. There was no penalty, which is good. I'm glad that they didn't penalize that because it was a racing move from Sainz and a reaction from the driver he was getting by, and it wasn't an intentional incident. So that's what happens. Sometimes it doesn't work out in your favor, even if you make the move stick.
I think Sainz did get a penalty eventually for something else, or it might have been that too. So they might have penalized Sainz. But
yeah, that may have been, yeah, because I think they retired him, and then he kind of came in, did a pit stop, and then did a lap and retired, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I take that back. That was a stupid call.
All right.
Yep.
Let's go to the bad quickly. I got two bad. Funny enough, both my bads are Norris and Williams for the weekend they had. I'm not necessarily blaming Williams, but I think they had a bad weekend. I just want to give an honorable mention to Red Bull's pit stop crew, not like I said, or whatever the fuck's going on with Red Bull, costing Max 6 seconds in the pits, 5th place, and maybe more if he was ahead of Hamilton after the safety car. Could have maybe competed with Leclerc, kept pace with Leclerc instead of being stuck behind Gasly for almost 20 laps. Yeah, probably 4th was out of the realm for Max, but we'll never know, be thanks to Red Bull's pit crew. Whatever the fuck's going on there. And Lawson. And I just bring that up, that honorable mention, to say I could talk about this every week probably with what the fuck's going on, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to delve into it. I'm just going to say noted and move on. What are your two bads?
So my first bad is Norris.
Mm-hmm.
And the second bad would be Lawson.
Okay. Which one you want to do first, Norris or Lawson?
You've got Norris as well, so let's dive into Norris.
Okay. Have at it.
So I normally don't agree with you on this type of thing, but I'm going to say, going back to your comments about Norris and his mentality and his attitude that maybe he doesn't have what it takes to be a world champion. I think this weekend, we really saw that. You know, he came out and he was saying things like, it's like I've never driven an F1 car before. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Like, his management team, I think, needs to sit him down and have a good workshop, let's call it that, with him on how to handle these press conferences, and maybe get him some help as well. Because you're right, at this point, that mentality is not going to lead to anything but utter failure. And that's where he's going to lose out to Piastri by getting into his own head to the point where he doesn't think he has it anymore, and then he gives up. At the slightest adversity, he loses it. And yeah, he didn't qualify well. I don't know where the hell that happened. But look at his pace in the race. He came back, and he probably could have had Russell if he had started a little higher. Overall, it wasn't that bad. He's still in the best car on the grid, and I'll maintain that it probably is the best car on the grid.
No question.
So I don't understand where that mentality comes from, to just be so defeatist that a shitty qualifying, which wasn't even insanely bad, to throw him off that much. I don't know. His head's not screwed on right at the moment, and that's what's going to cost him his first driver's championship. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to cost him his first driver's championship to his rookie partner.
No, I think you're right. Like, I think he knows he's not as good. I think this is what Felipe Massa said in 2009 about Jenson Button. He's psyching himself. Pardon me?
I'm not even saying that he's not as good as Piastri. I'm saying that potentially they're just as good as each other, but his mental state is going to cost him that position.
You see, I
He
don't
just
know.
needs to get his head down and work.
You see, I don't know if that's true. Like maybe you're right, but at this point, we've now seen 4 races in the same car. Plus, last year, remember there was a lot of fuckery with Piastri's strategy last year, and some of it he did to himself, some of it was done to him. But this is clear cut. We've seen this in 4 races. Piastri has been the better driver every race, and he's not. It's not even like I think you're right. I think you were onto it. Norris is psyching himself out or choking. I was trying to talk about Massa talking about Button in 2009. Like the car is great, Button's losing it, and I bring that up too for the last 2 years we've been hearing that it's been all car for Max. Max hasn't been winning the championships. I'd be just as good as Max if I was in the same car. Really? That Red Bull? No. And then now this McLaren, you're not even as good as your teammate. So I don't know. I don't know what else he has to say now. I think, and I'm seeing a lot of Charles Leclerc in him, in the sense that when he has no pressure on him, and he can just race without having to worry about whether he can win, or whether his teammate is just as good as him, he's happy and he overperforms. But when it comes time to win, he does not have it. He complains about the car. He complains about strategy. He's hard on himself when he loses, like Leclerc. I think you're right. I think we can say he's probably going to lose to Piastri if this keeps up. And like Leclerc, I don't know if that ever changes. We haven't seen it change with Leclerc yet. So I don't think it'll just change for Norris.
Oh, it definitely won't just change. He's got to get some help. Whether it's his management team straightening him out or otherwise, it's not going to change on its own. He has to make a conscious change to the way he looks at this. And without that, he will lose the championship.
I'm gonna say this simply because you've been correctly rubbing the Oliver Bierman salt in my wounds. So I'm gonna lash out at Mika Hakkinen like I usually do from time to time. Remember a couple years ago when he said Norris and Verstappen were on the same level? They were just missing the car. Suck it, Mika. What a great, nice guy he is. Great driver. I don't know why I always pick on him.
I think Mika Hakkinen has a serious case if he were to press battery charges against you.
I did say I want to see him spin out at Monza again. Yeah, I should probably go back and delete that part of that podcast.
It's out there already. It's never going away.
Once on the internet, always on the internet.
Exactly. The Wayback Machine.
All right. Yeah, we could go on for hours about Norris. So go on to Lawson now.
I mean, this is going to be fairly short, hopefully like Lawson's career. But there's just nothing there. Like, I really did not see anything impressive about Lawson. Keep in mind that he started this season with 11 Grand Prix starts under his belt. He got through 2 Grand Prix and a sprint this year with no points in that Red Bull, and then was put back in his old team, which this year that Racing Bull's car is not a huge departure from last year's. It is an improvement on last year's, but it's nothing groundbreaking. So he should understand that car, and he's got nothing against a rookie teammate that is now outscoring him for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, Red Bull has destroyed his confidence. I'm sure of that. Right. It's a massive hit to his self-esteem and confidence to be demoted after 2 races. But come on, if you were a good racer, if you were as good as people made you out to be, you would have done something. He's at the back with Bortoleto, Alonso, and Doohan.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like he was all hype and momentum. There was just all this momentum behind him. There was maybe some what's like that out of your mind driving to get him ninth place a couple times last year, and it just that magic is gone. And you're right. If this car's improvement and you scored points in last year's car, why aren't you hitting the ground running with this, especially in the second race? Yeah, I don't have much else to say either.
And we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but yeah, sucks to suck.
Yeah, this is why I have trust issues with the Formula One media whenever they tell me someone's good, and it's unfortunately blinding me in some ways to miss Behrman, to be very skeptical about Antonelli, and to see nothing in Hadjar, and all three have been pretty good, pretty decent. But it's because there's so much talk about this guy, who, when push comes to shove, there wasn't much there, and we lost Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez for him. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Want to add something else?
For Boston? No, I think that's it.
Okay, so like I said, my last bad was Williams. Not all of it was their fault, right? Like Albon probably could have been in Q3, at least Q2, if not for some absolutely ridiculous and bogus missing of a track limits, which for a series that for the last 2 years has gone above and beyond to give people track limits penalties for micrometers, to miss Hulkenberg's at a key moment really is ridiculous. And to cost Albon a spot in Q2 and then potentially Q3 based on the pace, it sucks for them. Like we also talked about Sainz's penalty. It was kind of harsh at times. Or, well, not at times. It was kind of harsh. And yeah, he had an unfortunate incident that ended his race. Maybe could have got some points. Yeah, it's just a bad weekend. They probably could have been where Haas was. And yeah, I feel for them. Not all their fault. Pace was there. Unfortunate weekend, I guess you can say. They're in the bad. It's not because they're bad. It's just a bad weekend.
Yeah, it was definitely an unfortunate weekend for them. Albon, yeah, probably deserved to be up there. The Hulkenberg thing is annoying to me because the FIA sets out the corners that they're going to look for track limit infringements on, based on, say, common areas where people run wide and gain an advantage. And my understanding of it is that Hulkenberg ran wide on a corner that wasn't being monitored. So the only reason it was investigated is because somebody looked at the data and reported it. And my assumption is that Williams reported it based on looking at the data, which then led the FIA to go back and have to pull up data from corners that they weren't investigating and make a determination of whether or not he gained an advantage, right? So on the corners that they are monitoring on any given weekend, their assumption in that phase is if you go over the line, you're going to gain an advantage, therefore we delete the time. Everything else is a case-by-case basis because there's a possibility you didn't gain an advantage. So that's where that came into play, and I think it was this kind of somebody in the background at Williams is simply tasked with looking at everybody's data to make sure if there's any way they can sneak in there, they're going to, which there's nothing wrong with that. I don't fault them for it at all. But the FIA either has to be diligent in monitoring every driver on track, or they need to find a way to better police this, right? To a point where they're either looking at all the corners that have the potential to gain an advantage, or put something in place that guarantees you cannot gain an advantage. So to me, it was a stupid thing, but that's the way it went. Frankly, if the next session has already started, my opinion is that the results should stand. If you haven't been able to make a judgment in that 5-minute gap, whatever it is, between sessions, then the result stands.
Yeah.
There's plenty of instances of those that type of decision making in sport, and it's not great. But I think deleting the lap after the session has already restarted and not being able to get the other team in place is useless. It doesn't help anybody. It makes the entire sport look bad. So let's put something in place that makes sense. Now, that's wishful thinking on my end, but yeah.
Well said.
So I would tend to put that as a bad on the FIA. And we talked about the good race direction in the first couple of races. This one is, let's say, the first strike against them so far for the race director.
And based on the way things are going, and we'll probably talk about next week, one strike, you're out these days.
Yeah.
It was actually Austin Martin who found the infringement. Funny enough, I wonder why they even cared. But I guess not finishing last is very important to them right now.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to finish last thanks to Stroll. At least not currently.
Yeah, there's a
10
long
points.
20 races to go. Yeah, I guess that does kind of work in their favor with Newey, but we'll see.
But it's 10 points. I really don't think Sauber or Alpine are going to get much further from 6.
Good point. Yeah, Alpine had I guess a quote-unquote good weekend. I think it was also very fortunate for them. I don't think we're going to see many weekends like that from them. You're right.
That's a good point. Maybe it deserves an honorable mention, but Gasly was on it all weekend.
He was.
I don't know where that came from, but whatever it is, I think they need to try and duplicate that. Because there's absolutely no reason he should have been up there. Doing at a good weekend too, but something, I don't know, maybe Gasly needs to take a piss test.
All right. Let's end it there by once again speculating whether somebody is taking drugs and accusing them of something we don't know whether they're doing or not. That's what this show is all about.
We would never do that.
All right. That's our quick recap for Bahrain. We'll be back with a more in-depth two-parter after Saudi Arabia because there's a lot of news going on in the Formula One world. But yeah, unfortunately, based on my schedule, this is all I can do this week. So thank you for putting up with me, Sean. Thank you for everybody putting up with me at home. And I appreciate you doing this as always, Sean.
No problem. Thank you, Nick. Hopefully you can get your shit together.
I'll try. I may fail, but I'll try.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Mm-hmm. That's what
this failure, that is.
I was about to say that's what this show's all about, but no, that's not what we're all about. That's maybe what I'm all about. All right, everybody. Yeah. As always, Formula One Philosophy at YouTube, Spotify. What did you guys think about Bahrain? Leave us a comment. All right. We'll see you after Saudi Arabia. Good night.
Good night.